When Nancy Pelosi ripped up Trump's State of the Union address on Tuesday night, it really pissed me off in a way that honestly was a little out of character. We were watching the NBC feed and it cut away right as she was about to make her first rip. We thought we saw it and we asked, wait, did she just tear up her copy? The broadcast then cut right back and yeah, she did. Unmistakably. The lady constantly lecturing us about Trump's breaches of norms treated the State of the Union like she's a dramatically less entertaining Hulk Hogan. I don't think he had to pre-rip his shirts, more on that in a moment, but add decorum and decency to the long list of supposed principles that get applied and abandoned intermittently, depending on what Nancy thinks can hurt Trump in the moment. I immediately took to Twitter and I called it one of the trashiest moves I've ever seen, and I stand by that opinion. But I've done a little self-scrutiny about my reaction too. Outrage is not my trademark. I'm not one to moralize over other people's speech or gestures that I may not agree with, but that don't actually hurt anybody. I'll explain why it's wrong, why I disagree. I'll make fun of it, sure, but normally emotional condemnation is not my go-to. This time it was. So what was it about this case that caused me to break that norm? What's special about tearing up the speech that pisses me off way more than the other etiquette breaches of the night? Things I care way less about, like Nancy not using the traditional presidential introduction and Trump snubbing her handshake offer right after. And I'm supposed to care about political lies too. At least that's Nancy's justification for the stunt, but I don't. At least comparatively.
This is not the truth. And he has shredded the truth in his speech. He's shredding the Constitution in his conduct. I shredded his State of his Mind address.
What these supposed lies are is never specifically explained, and the overzealous fact-checking I've seen is flailing more desperately than Nancy for the fix-it-ant. The Washington Post identifies some 30 of these falsehoods featuring these crucial matters of fact. Trump claimed there have been 7 million new jobs created since his election, and actually, it's 6.7 million. Trump said 7 million Americans have come off food stamps since his election. Actually, it's 6 million. Trump said average unemployment under his administration is lower than ever, but actually, other presidents had 4 and 8 year terms, so the comparison is invalid. It's comparing apples and oranges. Well, it's just comparing an apple to half an apple. But yeah, thanks for that. Democracy definitely would have died in darkness without these slight rounding corrections. Look, did the speech have exaggeration and opportunistically selected statistics? Yes, of course. Like every State of the Union speech ever. And ironically, it's an exaggeration to call an exaggeration a lie. There's a weird paradox in there somewhere. But I'll tell you what certainly isn't an exaggeration or a lie. It's no exaggeration or lie that this young man will never really know the father his mom fell in love with because he was hit by IED in Iraq when the boy was just a year old. It's no exaggeration or lie that these parents had their daughter taken from them by ISIS when she was providing humanitarian aid. It's no exaggeration or lie that this guy flew over 400 combat missions in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and during much of that time, he still had second-class citizenship in broad portions of this country. All that, and I still think the most impressive thing about him is how damn good he looks for 100 freaking years old. And I can assure you, the joy on this little boy's face upon his paratrooper father's surprise return from deployment is no exaggeration or lie. These are all stories of raw, authentic, nonpartisan, 100% pure apple pie American heroism, and they are inseparable pieces of the speech as a whole. I don't care if politicians don't address each other with the proper introductions. I don't care if they don't shake each other's hands. These are personal squabbles. I'm not outraged if they don't pretend to like each other. They obviously don't. But the ripping of the speech is far beyond just a jab at Trump. You can't rip that speech without necessarily ripping every one of those families and every one of their names and every one of their stories of service and sacrifice and love for this country. And that is why Nancy ripping up the speech pissed me off uniquely. This isn't a slap fight between politicians. This is a slap fight between a politician and the country. A country she's sworn to protect and defend above her own partisan preferences. And I'm not alone in that perspective. I think it's quite a common one, and one that's totally predictable. If you had considered this speech-ripping idea beforehand, it is obvious that it would piss people off and be a massive mistake, which implied to me that Nancy must have been caught up in a momentary fit of rage, and that's why she did this. It's not a great explanation, sure, but it is far better than actually, I pre-planned my step on this political rake. I calculated the exact velocity with which it would hit my face. We don't know that Nancy pre-planned this stunt before the event itself, but we do know she at least thought about it for a good long while. Nancy clearly pre-ripped the pages upon the initial introduction of Rush Limbaugh, some 40 minutes before the end of the speech, when she finally completed the job. So was it Rush that pissed her off, or was it the handshake snub, or some combination, or something else entirely? Who knows? But it's clear that Nancy sat for 40 minutes with this idea under contemplation in her head. That nonsense consumed at least part of what's left of her brain, while the rest of us admired these stories of American spirit and sacrifice. And having listened to those stories, she still thought it was a good idea to shred them. It is such a moronic political calculation on top of the hideous contempt for country. I feel like I have to be missing something. Like my own dislike for Nancy must be blinding me to how well this plays among the coveted Huffington Post Yas Queen demographic, who assuredly will oust Trump this time. The only trouble is you already have the Huffington Post Yas Queens firmly in your corner. They make up the even lower percentage of people who actually view Nancy favorably relative to Trump. To be totally fair, that number has bumped a little bit lately, but it's driven by those same Yas Queen partisans who will still support Nancy no matter what, enthusiastically or begrudgingly. I don't care what they think. I want to know what the average American thinks. I want to know what moderate Democrats think. I want to know what independents think. I want to know what swing voters think. Because it's not me and it's not the Yas Queens who will decide who's giving that speech this time next year. It's those people. So I've been scouring the internet looking for any sort of polling on the issue, and I haven't been able to find any. I hoped I might be able to find a voter panel with reaction like the news networks sometimes do. Haven't seen that either. The closest thing I could find is call-in reactions on C-SPAN after the speech. And no, it's not scientific, and it's not a representative sample necessarily. But it's not Fox News either. It's Americans of different perspectives from different places with a common recurring theme. I'm a Democrat, and fuck that bitch.
I've been a Democrat for 70-something years. I am changing my mind. I mean, I'll probably still be a Democrat. I'll probably stay home.
I thought it was disgusting. Nancy Pelosi and the others never standing, never clapping for anything that might be good for the country. I don't understand it. I used to be a Democrat, but I am no longer a Democrat.
It's outrageous. I will never vote Democrat again, and I'm sick of it, and my whole family feels the same way. My husband, my friends are sitting here, all former Democrats. We all voted for Hillary last time, and therefore never, ever will we ever vote Democrat again.
I am literally disgusted with Pelosi and the Democrats' behavior, the way she teared up his speech behind him. I was a registered Democrat. I've gone independent. I'm leaning GOP now.
With a simple rip of a paper, Nancy Pelosi has pretty much sealed the deal of a re-election of Donald Trump. The optics of that are so horrible, so childish. You have lost any independent voter.
That has to be the rowdiest broadcast in the history of C-SPAN. That's C-SPAN's Jerry Springer right there. To get this program that lively takes some serious provocation. These are people who likely disagree with my politics, but on this one, we're saying the exact same thing. You didn't slap Trump, lady. You slapped our country, and we won't forget it.
It's not just a protest against the president. It's a protest against everything good that this country was founded on. We love our country, and we want to see it succeed. But it appears to us that our Democratic Party has been stolen from us by a bunch of communists.
We're at the point where C-SPAN is now McCarthyist, but where's the lie? This country sucks and nationalize the means of production are basically formal policy positions on the Democratic Party platform. And no, I didn't cherry pick these callers. I didn't conveniently edit out the ones who praised Nancy, who called her hero, queen, legend with the crown emoji, because there are no blue checks in this segment, because this segment is real life, not Twitter. Nancy insists that she doesn't need any lessons on dignity.
You often counsel your members to be dignified in their response to the president, take the high ground. Did you step on that message by tearing up the State of the Union?
No, I did not. I tore up a manifesto of mistruths, and I don't need any lessons from anybody, especially the President of the United States, about dignity.
Yeah, nobody cares about your supposed personal dignity, though. Nobody cares whether you personally consider yourself dignified or not. We care about your priorities on the job. We care about what matters more to you, your overall love of this country or your personal hatred for the president. It's clear which one mattered in the moment, but by doubling down, Nancy is demonstrating which one matters in the long term too, and exactly what sort of non-results we can expect under her leadership. Hating Trump first doesn't get anyone a job. Hating Trump first doesn't improve anyone's health care access. Hating Trump first doesn't make any Americans tomorrow better than today. But sure, go ahead and run on this. We all can't wait to vote for Nancy's pristine dignity over our own quality of life. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.